Before we start the high-level segment, I'd like to welcome some leading non-state actor voices on stage to showcase the actions already underway to advance a transformative resilience in vulnerable communities. We're going to hear from Selina Leem, climate warrior and poet from the Marshall Islands, from Jean Leon, the president of the Caribbean Development Bank, and from Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, on financing a catalytic transition in small island developing states. And to start, it's my pleasure to introduce Selina Leem, climate warrior and poet from the Marshall Islands. Selina, over to you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies, gentlemen, and genders, good morning. As you have recognized, our large ocean nation and the late great Tony DeBroom made an outsized contribution to making the Paris Agreement a reality. Here in Glasgow, we expect again for the High Ambition Coalition to ensure that the world delivers fully on the promise of Paris. In the eye of the climate crisis, which affects every aspect of the Marshallese way of life and livelihoods, we must tackle this alongside other challenges like unemployment, poverty, and health concerns. Education and indigenous knowledge are the first step to addressing these challenges. An example of this is through the ZIZ-funded initiative with One Island in Mayal, which uses our traditional canoe designs for developing new forms of sustainable sea transportation. As a youth of the Marshall Islands, I know firsthand the need for collaboration in building resilience and implementing equitable, inclusive, and interconnected climate solutions in small islands. Our government has been spearheading the engagement of youths at every level of decision-making through the creation of the Gwangesh Pledge. I encourage other countries to sign up for this pledge. If the Marshall Islands achieve its goal for 100% renewable energy, it will mean that our families will stop experiencing power outages on a weekly basis and free up government resources for our people's most important needs, like health and education. But to achieve that, communities, organizations, and institutions that need to build their capacity, we must draw on the wisdom of our Pacific Island leaders and share our successes in return. And we need collaboration between island communities, donors, and project developers to build projects that really reflect the priorities of our communities. It is through this type of collaboration that we can make SIDS more resilient to climate change and support all generations of island communities. As our great champion Tony DeBroom used to say, the thought of having to give up our islands is repulsive to us. But if we save the Marshall Islands, we will save the world. I would like to now welcome the President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Jean Leon. Como tata.
Thank you, Selina. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Small island developing states are at the forefront of climate action, even while we face some of the worst impacts from sea level rise, storm damage, and loss of coastal ecosystems. For the past 40 years, islands have been battered by natural hazards, yet access to finance remains completely inadequate. To better finance our development needs, we need to address economic recovery, climate action, and human welfare. Partnerships will be critical. The Caribbean Development Bank, along with the Inter-American Development Bank and the Green Climate Fund, therefore proposes the creation of a multi-donor financing facility to spur public and private investment, including in climate solutions and resilient infrastructure and institutions. This will include a framework to measure and adjust finance based on the cost and duration of recovery from natural hazards. This partnership model, which could be emulated in the Pacific, will develop new financial instruments to de-risk and mobilize capital, to leverage public funding to catalyze private financing, direct funding towards resilient mitigation and adaptation projects, and integrate long-term capacity development through committing to specific reforms. This investment vehicle will contribute finance to the estimated $130 billion needed across Caribbean and Pacific SIDS to achieve 90% renewable energy by 2040. Our islands do not want to stop there. We need to target sustainability, equity, and resilience as we focus on infrastructure, energy systems, institutions, communities, and ecosystems. In addition, another initiative that will mobilize finance in islands for mitigation and adaptation is the Climate Finance Access Network. This initiative is being launched in the Pacific islands of Fiji, Kiribati, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, the Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu, and will accelerate the development of projects and help structure financing for impactful mitigation and adaptation projects. Now, I would like to welcome Brian Moynihan, President of Bank of America, to announce exciting action his institution is taking to accelerate actions in SIDS. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Leon. Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's an honor to be here on behalf of my 200,000 teammates at Bank of America. Our company is working to help drive the transition to a low-carbon, sustainable future we all want. We have pledged to achieve net zero emissions in our financing, our operations, and our supply chain by 2050. To get there, we'll provide $100 billion per year in financing through 2030, over $1 trillion to the effort. I also have the honor of serving as co-chair to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales in the Sustainable Markets Initiative, or what we call the SMI. The SMI is a private sector-led effort to accelerate the transition to a low-carbon economy. It's a coalition of the willing, 200 CEOs, to helping mobilize transitional capital for key projects and geographies. One of the areas of focus for the SMI are the small island developing states. Exposure to environmental and social risk factors, as my colleagues have talked about, combined with insufficient access to capital, makes these regions some of the most vulnerable in our world today. Working through the SMI and the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, or GFANZ, Bank of America is deploying its human and financial capital to help these nations to a cleaner, more sustainable future. I'd like to share an example of a project that we're working on right now. This is mobilizing private sector capital in creative ways. We're working with one of the largest clean energy developers in the regions to support the development of a multi-gigawatt pipeline. This project goes across all different types of activity, wind, solar, and EV charging stations to the Caribbean states and Latin America, with a focus on the SIDS nations, where approximately 800 megawatts of development capacity has been identified to be deployed. We're making this type of financing diversified across multiple clean technologies and multiple countries, which helps us deliver scale, flexibility, and cost efficiency out of the box. Our aim is to build awareness and momentum behind this and other initiatives which can deepen private sector involvement. The public sector, the MDIs, the DFIs, and the MDBs can all play a role by helping enable the flow of capital. That includes lowering barriers of entry for international developers and financial institutions. At the end of the day, it will take all of us, governments, companies, investors, and consumers, working together so we can benefit from a just transition to a sustainable economy. We have to do this while we afford access to everyone for clean, affordable energy, to maintain economic growth and development during this transition, and this project helps do that. Bank of America is committed to helping this effort, and we'll hope you will join us in a global effort to make this happen. Thank you, and this concludes our interlude.